Hello, everybody. My name is Carl Spreedes. I'm the author of Decide Your Destiny and the custodian of the Decide Your Destiny movement. And this is the destiny of your soul.
And I am Angela, author of Poems from a Lost Soul and host of the Relatively Damaged podcast. Welcome to the show. Today, we are going to talk about how to find a mentor that helps you be your best self. And off the top of my head, I am trying to remember our homework from last week. I know it. Just give me a second. I'll find it. So our homework from last week is or was to bear with me. It was a lot. Right. It was a lot of homework. It was in what may
We've dishing out the homework, haven't we?
Yeah, just trying, so the first step was, in what may feel like a highly emotional or volatile situation, pull back, breathe, and go into the logical mind, responding in love instead of reacting from emotion, and then notice what happens. Journal about it, and if anything surprised you. Number 2, challenge your beliefs with a question and look for the root cause of that emotion. What does the emotion mean? Is it true? Check out streetepistemology.com or thework.org for tools to help. I also added, I didn't ask Kyle if I could do this, but hopefully it's okay. I added some helpful books. So Loving What Is by Byron Katie, Think Again by Adam Grant, The Book of Beautiful Questions by Warren Berger, and High Conflict by Amanda Ripley, which are all great books when trying to navigate family situations and dynamics. But that was big homework.
Quite a bit. Hey, it's a bit of an essay there.
It was.
We haven't worked out how we're going to check if the homework's been done or not.
Well, they're supposed to send us an email at thedestinyofyoursoul@gmail.com.
She's head teacher. She is head teacher. There we go.
I'm the head teacher. Okay. Just do what I say. Don't do what I do. Do as I say, or no.
Yep.
Just kidding.
No, but we're live streaming and doing a channel even further apart now because I'm on the east coast of Australia, so it's plus 3 hours difference. So that's the time change for anybody. It's a little wild.
It is because I'm in California. Now you're in Sydney. Beautiful city, by the way. And which I've never been there. I only have seen pictures, but it is beautiful. I've never even seen pictures of Perth. So maybe I should look up pictures of Perth so I know what that's like.
I'll send you some shots.
There we go. Yes, you are a photographer, so that would be very helpful. But
it's beautiful. Sydney's like a landmark. If you look at, you think of Paris and the Eiffel Tower, you think of Rome, you think of these, in the Colosseum, you think of these places in the landmarks. Sydney really, out of all the cities in Australia, lots of people like to say that their city's the best, but when you think about like landmarks and kind of that, what do you remember of Sydney? Oh, you remember that Opera House thingy and that Harbour Bridge, and that's kind of like the two big landmarks. And I met someone recently and they've got an apartment and it looks directly over it. And you can like see the city and then you can see the Opera House down there. You can see the bridge, and it's like a stunning view. So yeah, it's pretty big. But what I found out recently was that actually I always thought like Sydney property was obviously the top in the country. or Sydney earnings was top in the country, but apparently Perth, just around the corner where I'm from, Fremantle, a suburb called Cottesloe, um, has some of the top median, like median. Obviously, it's we've only got 2.5 million. Sydney's got 6 million, but and I think it's got some of the top prices as well. So like on average, where Sydney gets like these kind of once and I guess that's the big thing about real estate is that sometimes you're locked in, like you can't build to the left, you can't build to the right. There's this beautiful view, and that property, that price is never going to go away no matter what happens in the world. Like it's going to be sought after. So yeah, but it's
Yeah,
really part of the world.
I was gonna say that's what we really want in our mentor, right? We want somebody we're gonna, a sought after mentor that
Yeah.
helps us achieve those goals, so that we become also sought after, right?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I've been thinking about our show quite a bit. I've been thinking about some things, and I actually had um, like two sessions with like two, I guess I call them mentors. But what would you describe as a mentor? I guess what's your definition of a mentor, just so we can get clear on the word, you know?
Yeah, I think that. Thank you for that. I know what I think a mentor is not, which is where my poem is from this week. So maybe I'll introduce the poem now, and we'll just go through till the end, because I only have one today. Uh, so, this poem I called Advice, and it says, "Sometimes I forget to ask, and I think I know what it is you need. And I tell you instead what it is I need. And when I do that, you walk away in frustration, in misunderstanding. And that made me feel sad. And I learned to ask you, to wait, to investigate until it is that you figure out what exactly it is you need." So, the very top of that poem, when somebody gives me, and it's what Brian Fretwell calls SOFA, is the acronym: suggestions, opinions, feedback, or advice.
Mm.
He says, don't even give it until somebody asks twice. And I
Oh
thought,
wow,
that's actually really interesting.
that is
I'm going to
interesting.
have to see what I think about that.
Yeah.
Um, Because quite frankly, if I'm not wanting it and somebody's telling me, like we're just
Mm.
having a conversation. In fact, with one of the people in my life that I would consider a mentor, I was having a conversation trying to figure out, in the United States, on day of recording, it is Thanksgiving. So for me, there's been
Woo!
some,
Happy Thanksgiving.
thank you. Thank you. There's been some interesting family dynamics that I'm trying to navigate through, and I wasn't sure how I wanted to do it or what I wanted to do. I just knew that I needed to be authentic. I wanted to be authentic in whatever I did,
Mhm.
and that was like the most important and loving. And could I do that? Did I want to play the same role I've always played in my family? So I did things differently. I just did things differently
Cool.
just to shake it up.
Yeah.
And I chose to enjoy it. But I was talking to a friend of mine, the one I also consider a mentor, and she starts telling me, "Well, you're such a loving person, and you need to do this, and you need to do that," and really pushing me to what she thought that I needed to do,
Mm.
instead of asking me what's going on, what do you think, how are the and
It's
she's
huge,
usually
isn't it?
one of like she usually asks me all these questions. She says, "But hold on, what about this?" And she'll throw out some really off the wall thing that actually gets me thinking. And
Yes.
then I
That's
will
awesome.
start answering, I will find the answers within me. So,
Yes.
even when you do find a really fantastic mentor, sometimes they're going to fail you.
Yep.
That's okay. Anyway, so that's kind of my thought on a mentor. I want someone who's going to help me figure out what it is I need. Okay, if I want success, what does success mean? Like you asked me, hey, let's get clear on what the word mentor means. What does it mean to you? Right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
so important.
Exactly. Exactly. No, I think because what happens sometimes on podcasts or like you're talking about conversations, like what happened in that situation that you're talking about, like the person's jumping into it, and so the same thing in this podcast. And I'll probably thank some of the people that I did some work with today to kind of help me uh, I guess, gather some strength for the day ahead. Um, and the mentors that I work with, but just bringing that presence, like that kind of, I don't know if it's presence, but just that kind of that raised awareness, like to okay, we're going to talk about mentors. What's the definition? Because if we don't get clear, and it's really important, like to get clear on it's communication. As soon as there's communication breakdown anywhere, you know, everything goes south. It's like I can't remember the exact saying. I'm gonna butcher it big time here, but it's like that. Like death in anything starts with the death of communication. Like once you take language and communication away, that's when all manner of things go wrong, and that's why I'm a big advocate. And you can see some of the other videos that we've done. I'm a big advocate of um, freedom of speech, freedom of communication. Um, if a guy like Hitler's cropping up and he's speaking at local places, I want to hear about it. I don't want it to be cancelled or censored or look, this information might hurt your feelings. I don't give a damn. I want to be able to see, hear, and have the data information to interpret for myself. And it's weird sometimes living in a world where it feels very much like parental guidelines throughout your life of this is what we suggest you see, this is what we suggest you don't see, this is what this is the narrative we want, this is the narrative we don't want you to. And it's kind of like, well, wait a minute, I'm a spiritual being, I'm my own person here. I don't know how much life I've got here, how much time I've got here. Can I try and figure it out myself? I mean, look at history. History is about people figuring out themselves. Okay, we'll build a harbor here. We'll do this. And they had mentors, they had coaches, they had people to help them out. But yeah, it's strange times in terms of having information collated and kind of organized for you to digest for a certain
Yeah.
narrative. And I think that's really what a mentor does is, for me, allows you to ask questions, ask stronger questions, and ask you those stronger questions, and gets you to think outside of your paradigm, that has been created around you. So
Yeah.
that's what I feel like a mentor does.
Now, you had brought up Hitler. So, have you heard of the Stanley
I went
Milgram
straight with
study?
H-Dog. Sorry, go on.
I know, right? But have you heard of the shocking experiment? Have we talked about that before? I'm not sure if we have.
No, but is that kind of where
Okay.
you get rid of, they try and get rid of your mental issues by literally frying your brain?
No, that's something totally different, and that
Oh,
has been proven to work, so, I'm not
okay,
gonna josh it right now, but,
okay.
no. So with this experiment, what they did is they had someone in the room in a white lab coat. Then they had a Confederate, so a Confederate is someone like an actor, and then they brought in the person that was being experimented on. And the Stanley Milgram, what he wanted to do was better understand what was happening. Why did Germans do what they did? Why did they just follow Hitler? He didn't understand, and he wanted to investigate. Now, this study was done in the United States, and it was set up very well. So a couple of things about the Confederate. They thought he had a heart problem. He actually was in another room. Let's see, I think, and he was older, a little overweight, I want to say. So this Confederate goes into another room. Assume maybe we're the people that are participating in the experiment.
Mhm,
So you come in, you meet that person, and then the clinical person just sits in the back of the room to observe. And they're
mhm,
in a white lab coat. And you ask, if I'm the experiment and the person in the experiment, the participant, then I'm asking the Confederate questions, and they're getting some of them wrong. And when they get it wrong, I have to shock them up to 450 volts. So it progressively goes up. I can't remember the lowest to the highest. So what they found though was like 90% of the people, or some, it was I think it was higher than that, but I don't want to quote it because I don't remember exactly
mhm.
what it was, would continue shocking. And if they turned
Oh,
around
yeah,
and
I remember
asked,
this one.
the guy in the white coat or the person in the white coat, they would just say the experiment must continue. That's all they said. The experiment would continue if you left because that was part of the experiment, but it wasn't made clear. So these people would literally shock other people, or they think they're shocking these people. And I mean, so we do it too. We all do it. Where am I blindly following when something just doesn't feel right?
Mm.
Am I depending too much on my mentor to tell me what to do and how to do it? Am I, turning over my power and my will to them? Or or are they helping me to better understand, get my own self awareness?
Yep. And it could be, is this my mentor's dream or my mentor's vision rather than my own? There's lots of different. Like I had a coach for a while that was really helping me out, but he was kind of trying to take well, he was trying to, he was helping me a lot, and then he was trying to work out like where I'm trying to take business and different sort of things, um and where he was trying to go, I tried, but I just, like a stubborn, I don't know, animal like kicking its hoof. I kept wanting to go a different direction, and I had to figure that out for myself. So every now and then you have to figure stuff out for yourself. Um, and every now and then, like there were times where I was just like with this mentor coach, I was like, look, I'm just going to be completely indoctrinated, programmed uh, by what you're going to help me with, because sometimes you just got to follow suit, um, and go, okay, uh, there's an example of this working. He's shown me that the process of how this can work. Let's go and make it work. But at the end of the day, you got to make that decision. You got to make that call, because it's going to bear on your soul.
Yeah. Yeah. You're reminding me actually of a conversation I just had this morning with my niece and my nephew's girlfriend. There we go. I'm like, wait, what is she? Excuse me. Sorry, Ashley. She may be watching this later.
Shouts out.
And we were talking, and I said, well, think of a challenge that you had before, and what strengths did you gain from it? And she's like, well, what do you mean challenge? Life is just, and I said, okay, well, yes, we have life, and then we also have challenges, and challenges are also a part of life. And she said, well, this is a really hard question to answer. It's also a really important question to answer for herself, because then, like, my nephew wanted to give her an answer, and then my sister said, I know something. And I said, no. It's really uncomfortable to find your strengths sometimes, or to even know them. But who's the most important person to know them? It's not me. It's her.
Oh, yeah.
So I said to her, so when you're doing something and out of the blue, because something that the brain does is it can't help but answer a question. I mean, really think about it. What was the color of your first car? What was the street you first lived on? Things like that. You answer it, right? You just did in your brain. It just happened. So I told her, I said, it's okay. You don't have to answer it right now. The answer comes in time. So sometimes we also have to let someone stew in that uncomfortableness until they find it, because they're the ones who have to find it.
Exactly. This conversation reminded me of a story that I got told recently. I mean, so much comes out of that uncomfortableness and that discomfort. And I was speaking on a panel on Wednesday, and I get so nervous before any speech. And I was reading a book, actually. In the book, I think, let me actually, rather than just say it, let me actually find the book for you. Vivid Vision by Cameron Hames. I'm pretty sure, or Haynes. So anyway, in that book, he talks about, it's about creating your vision. So reaching into your future and visually playing it out. And you can do this with the positive and negative. So you can do it with, okay, wow, what would I do in this situation if 3 of my staff left? And you can play it out in your mind. And then, you can do it with positive and negative rather than going and actually experiencing it. It's kind of like putting on VR goggles or augment reality, like it's getting that reality before, but without having to go and experience it, and then actually you're kind of immersed in what it would be like if this went wrong or if that went right. And so one of the things he said is he would, in his mind, he would go on that stage many times over. And if he could get to the stage the day before or whatever he was doing, and I'm sure he was probably speaking in front of like lots and lots of people, he'd go there and kind of just get a feel for everything and just be there and experience it. And then he said when he went on the stage, he wasn't nervous. But so anyway, I didn't quite do that, but I was very nervous and anyway, the panel was great, and the whole like group and network, and the local council and everything, like loved every part of the event. Um, but in the moment now, what I've noticed is every time I'm starting to feel that discomfort, I'm going, okay, great, this is a step in the right direction. And I think that's the thing. We can be doing so many different things in our lives. We can be doing so many things in our business, so many things online, and not really getting a lot of like data or feedback going, yep, this is right, you made a right step there, you're on the right direction there. And so I think like in a sort of spiritual sense, or in an embodiment, if you're getting that feeling and you go, wow, I put myself in this place of discomfort, of being uncomfortable, of trying to resist it and go, oh, I'd just rather sit down there away from everyone. If you're getting that reminder, then you go, that's saying, hey, you're taking steps in the right direction of where you wanted to go, and that's your growth, that's your personal growth. And a mentor, like that's the beauty of a mentor. A mentor's supposed to get you there. And one of the stories that I just remembered when we were talking about it was one of my other uncles was telling me a story about an elephant, right? And so an elephant, when he was younger, he had a chain around his leg, and he tried to kick like get the chain off, tried to kick the chain off, and he couldn't get rid of it. He was too young. And then he grew up, and he was this giant behemoth, strong legs, strong elephant. And he would try and kick the chain off, and he couldn't get it off. And physics, like the actual him being strong enough to get it off, he could, but the mind was programmed to think he couldn't. And I think that is so much I think that's been so much of my life. I think that's so much of so many other people's lives. Like even you've written a book, I've written a book. That's the whole point of this show, was bringing our books together, going chapter by chapter through it. And if you mention to people, what's the first thing they say? Oh, I could never write that. I can never write that. That's the elephant with chain on as a kid, and then growing up. I mean, look, that it's very unlikely you're going to have people all through your life cheering you on, going, "You've got this," every step of the way. My grandmother is someone like that for me, and that's been a huge help, because that self-belief, that love, that trust, that hey, you can do more. I know you can do more, and actually, matter of fact, Kyle, I expect you to do more. And that came from her father. You've been saying you've been given a lot, and it's your obligation to go out and give a lot more. And so, I think what happens is, even the flittering of eyes, I can see it in people's eyes. If you mention, oh, I wrote a book, or whatever it is, like, or you mention your dreams or your vision, and like when you get more in line of where you're going and more clarity, and you're more focused on your destiny, I feel like that's when you start noticing everything about people. Like you start reading everything about people, like just seeing it all through, and it's just transparent. And just the slightest little flicker of an eye, like down, or that's communicating so much to in their mind. Oh, who does this guy think he is? But you know what I mean. So it's not even
Mhm.
just the who do you think you are, or the hate, or the direct thing. It's also the subtle things that you have to deal with. But just that what you were sharing there just reminded me of that elephant story.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And what you just shared actually run it. Now this is a little bit of a jump, but the world gets richer is what I heard you say, and you start noticing things, and so I immediately thought of fasting.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah,
if you've ever fasted, the first meal is decadent, and if you fast,
yeah.
more than a day, you, colors become brighter, smells become, you're more sensitive to smell. many things happen, I think, that
Yes.
are interesting,
Yeah.
to say the least. And I think that sometimes going through that struggle to get to that place makes it so that all of that is brighter and more, um, just richer. And by the way, guys, there's still family here, so if you hear noise in the background, that's that's them.
Thanksgiving
They're having
fun.
fun. Yeah.
Part of it.
I'm having fun too. I was like, "Hey guys, nope, this is what I want to do and I'm going to go do it."
Yep. And I actually had that, I think 2 or 3 times. I've been able to, you don't have your environment anymore. When I've come back to Sydney, like I don't have the Perth environment, I don't have the setup, don't have everything. I had 2 or 3 moments where it's like, like I don't know if I can do this Zoom. This is quite a professional, but I don't know if I can do this podcast. I don't know if, and just before, like half an hour before, I go, hey, like you can, and how cool will it be if you do it and get it done? And just kind of that self encouragement, and just rejigging that language. But I don't
Mhm.
have my mic here. I don't have my not everything's And as a photographer, like like perfection and like trying to have everything set up and make sure you've got 10 batteries backed up and all your hard drives backed up. So you're always covering everywhere, but that's not life. Life's gonna throw you punches. Sometimes things change, and sometimes you can find a solution. I think that's like the real skill of us is like as beings is like how do we find a solution? How do we figure it out in the not the best conditions? And I think we live in such a
Yeah.
comforted world where we want the best conditions all the time, and
Yeah.
it's really nice to be able to go and show up in the conditions that are not great.
Yeah, and I think so with my disability, and the first thing that I started was the podcast, and I needed those people around me at that point in time. Oh yeah, you can do this, because it was a big deal, and plus I needed help, right? I needed help to put it together. And initially, like at first, we got, I think the transcript is like 90% part right or perfect or something. I can't remember what the word is that's used when we put it together. And as lo and behold, it was good enough. Like if we weren't going to go through it 2 or 3 times, we weren't going to do all this to make it perfect, because it didn't it didn't need to be perfect. It needed to be good enough. A friend of mine
Mm.
a long time ago said, C's
Done
get
is better than
degrees.
perfect. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But, like,
I
yeah.
like that one. Please get degrees.
But yeah, but yeah, because the point was, like, stop trying to be perfect. Nothing's perfect anyway. And in fact, what if it's just perfect as it is in what is? Or seen this word recently in a book, in the isness, right? Like, this is, and because it is, it's perfect. That's like the quote I put up. I think I've put it up a couple of times on my socials. You are, and because you are, that is enough, because it's true with
Uh,
all of those things. Go on. Yeah.
and like the whole perfect thing, I think it's like one thing that photography is really great at, is teaching you the kind of take a shot here, no, that didn't quite work, move over here. No. So there's all those imperfect moments or photos that aren't good enough that lead you to the hero shot, or they lead you to the moment where the client goes, wow, like how the hell did you get that? How did you combine that? How did you see that? How did it's all the failures or missteps or mistakes or whatever you want to call it, those little stepping stones that lead you to that moment. And
Mm.
you have to actually, if you don't actually go for it, show up and go for it and go for it and go for it, then you won't get to that perceived perfection. Or you won't get to that moment where it's like, okay, great, we've got something here, and with photography, you're looking for the subject. So you want the right subject, the right, if it's the colorful puppy with a scar across its eye or whatever it is, then you want the right moment. So okay, it's as it's jumping, and then you want the right lighting. So you're looking for and so subject's part of the composition, and the moment is, is a part of, like, it's like that movement, and it's also part of the composition. And then the lighting, the lighting that kind of either attributes to it, harsh lighting in the city, or maybe like a light bouncing off a big glass tower that kind of reflects into the eye of the scar, whatever it is. And so it's the combination of those three things. So you're kind of, and that's what I call photography perfection.
Yeah. And I'm just thinking, you don't wait until you see the perfect picture. You're taking pictures of the entire process, and
Yep. And then there's
somewhere
one in there.
in
Yeah.
there,
Yep.
like, that's what's interesting to me, is like, it's like, okay, somewhere in this is a perfect shot, and you don't know exactly where it is even until you go back later
Yeah.
and look
Yeah.
at all the shots, right? You don't go, "Oh, that was the perfect one, we're done."
Yeah.
Or do you? I
Yeah.
don't know.
Well, it depends. A great example is looking at contact sheets, and you can look this up online, which is really cool. So if you see some of the most famous photographs ever taken, so it's photographs of storming the beach on Normandy, or like Gallipoli or wherever it is, and there's that one shot of the soldier in the ocean, and the photographer sent it back to his assistant, who ended up, like, accidentally burning most of the roll. And I think that was one of the photographs that was saved. Um, and like that was like one of the most powerful photographs that he took. So luckily enough, but you can go and look at these famous photographs and see the contact sheet, which basically, like in film days, like you can see the photographs that were taken before and the photographs that were taken afterwards. It's a real humbling experience, because we see that it's kind of like you see the Photoshop, you see the finished product, you see the person who's, all their fat's been edited out, all their pimples, all that, has been edited out. But you don't see the process, and that's the cool thing about social media today and podcasting and all these sorts of things, is that you're able to show people the process. And I think people are much more interested. Whenever I've posted, people are interested in behind the scenes. What did he do to create that photo? Like who's helping him? How does he create the project with the client? Where does the concept come about? All those sorts of things, like behind the scenes, are very interesting for people to see, and I think it's a lot more engaging. But I think you definitely do. The better you get, the less photos you need to take, and when you've got it, like when you've got the shot, compared to other times.
Yeah. So, okay, so let's think of that
Bring it
in
back to
in
mentors.
a yeah, yeah, that's what that is exactly what I'm thinking. So even with a mentor, the hope would be, I would think, to ask enough questions of you, and to maybe point to some of the places where improvement could be made, or even asking the questions, do you need 1,000 clicks on your camera before you get to that perfect picture? What if you tried 900, or what if you tried, I mean, I don't know how many clicks you make, but like, or how many pictures are taken, I'm just guessing, um before you find that perfect photo, right? And even for, maybe if I'm a mentee and somebody's asking me those questions, you know am I spending my time wisely?
Mm. Well, that's a great point, and possibly the homework that I would suggest would be, um, asking that question in terms of, there's quite a few questions that I was kind of thinking of before I jumped on, and some of my mentors, like, or some people kind of helped me with it, but I was considering, like, how much of life is literally just us getting that in our own way, tripping ourselves up, uh, like not seeing clearly. How much of life is that, getting caught up in the physical, the mechanics, the technical, um, and not seeing clearly. And I think that's really the mentor, what they help you with. They help you to see where you're getting in your own way. Like when I've had coaches and mentors, that's what they've helped with. They help with, oh, like, why are you complicating this? This is where you string it together. Can't you see that clearly? And sometimes you just, like, you think, like, wow, what, how did he do that magic trick? And it's right in front of you the whole damn time. You're like, okay, goodness. And that's like, we need help. Anything created on this planet needed a lot of help.
Yeah.
Anything beautiful created, and even philosophy. It wasn't just one person sitting on a rock. It was a
Mm.
person
Yeah.
conversating. Even Socrates was kind of interacting with his environment, like being connected and pulling back and observing and experiencing the human experience and the condition. And I think he was even a soldier at one point. So he had all those kind of those moments of being a part of a team. But the questions I guess I would ask, a couple of questions, like just thinking of homework, would be, like obviously we need to seek out the right mentor, someone that can help us get out of our own way. But a great question I would love to ask would be like, how much would you pay? How much would you invest? How much would you like, investigate? How much would you commit? How much if you could get your dream? Ask yourself like, what would it take? What would it take? And for like, I think the clear answer is like, well, like anything. Like I'll go get it. Well, you tell me to climb up that mountain and get something off the top of the mountain. I'll get it if it's going to get me to my goals, get me to where I'm wanting to go. And I've been asking this question more and more lately: is like, how deep could we reach into our full potential if we cleared away all of the sewage, all of the crap, all of the wrong thinking, the things that like mess us up and trip us up, and
Yeah.
that's the when you're finding a mentor and looking for a mentor and finding the right people to help you along your life, that's what they need to do. They need to help you clear away the garbage so that you can see. And some of the garbage is like that real negative self-talk of like, I'm not good enough, I can't do this, who do I think I am, like,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
also, if you're around people that are saying that, some of the garbage is those people, and they need to hit the garbage bin, you know?
Yes, yes. Okay, so I have an analogy maybe? I think it's an analogy. So as you know, and most of our listeners know, I've got a disability. So my hands don't work right. And
Yeah.
uh, one one of the biggest lessons I learned was that it is really great to have a teammate. And the most interesting place that I learned this, so it was easy in the house, but it was the car. That was where there's this interesting idea that only one person is driving and only one person needs to see what's happening on the road. And they would, the comment would be, well, don't be a backseat driver, things like that. And I was like, huh, that's really interesting. Am I a backseat driver or am I a co pilot? And when you have a really good co pilot to your driving, or you're flying a plane or whatever, there's a reason planes have co pilots, right? So I started shifting the narrative to let people know, number one, we're a team. And number two, because they're my hands and I'm mentally capable. So they can't come in and just decide they're going to change things, because then they're not on my team, right? And in the car, what we've noticed, because it's been 11 years. Yeah, 11 years, I want to say, that when sometimes what I see, they haven't seen. And so what we do is we I will say it and they will acknowledge it, so that they know that I know, and I know that they know, so that then we become of one mind, a singular mind, but we're still two separate minds and we're still pointing out. And I think that's what a good mentor does, is they're on your team,
Mhm.
number one, and number two is they say, hey, did you notice that there? And you might be
Yeah.
able to, you're the driver, right? But they're there to be like, hey, have you noticed that? Have you noticed
Yeah.
that? What are you doing about this? And it becomes um, you become stronger because of it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's in every business, they have partners, you like, and everyone that you're getting into, like when you're going for like coaching or like, maybe for your fitness, anything, like for, you want to learn guitar, anything, you need that kind of partnership, and it's kind of like an agreement. Obviously you got the contract, you got all those sorts of things, you got the, but you're agreeing to show up and the other person's agreeing to show up, and it's that accountability. And what you were mentioning before about that person that kind of was telling you rather than working with you. And I think that's what kind of the big point that we're uncovering through the podcast is like there's mentoring and then there's like dictating, you know. And
Yes.
I've never seen forced help work out, you know, unless like yeah, like maybe someone's like really, really struggling and they're I don't know, like they're on a bunch of drugs or something and you're trying your best. Like I just but forced
Even
help
then,
is just like
even
it's not
then,
help, you know. And when someone
no.
advertises like try this, we're going to help you, or we're, like really do this, like you have to do this, we're going to all I want to do is help you. And it's like, wait a minute, you've never built any rapport with me, like you know, like you don't even know what I might need, you know. I think that's where the like authentic world is going, is like you need like more tailored care, you know, like to actually help like. And yeah, I think what you're about to say with someone taking like on heavy drugs or whatever, like you need to build the rapport, you need to be able to communicate. You need to be able to connect before you just kind of
Yeah.
help them, tie them up, and take them away.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I think I said a couple episodes back, I'm a member of Al-Anon, and one of the things that we say is, don't take away their last beer. It's
Mm.
not our job to make anybody else anything other than what they want to be. And sometimes that is the hardest place to be because we can see, other people in my life can see where my holes in the pavement are, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Like, a lot of times they can see it. The solution they'll give me, though, is from their perspective. And while it might make sense to them, maybe that's not part of my journey. And so I
Mm.
have to remember that advice I was talking about earlier, if I get somebody that just wants to tell me what to do instead of asking me questions, getting to understand me, what does mentoring mean? What does success mean? Depending on if I say, hey, I want to be successful. Okay, what does that mean? And why in the world do you want that? Right?
Mm.
Like, those
Yeah.
are important questions to ask
Yes. Yeah.
and important to know going into mentorship. And hopefully the mentor will ask those questions. But under sometimes, those holes that other people see, we just want to, we have to fall in them for
Mm.
whatever reason. I don't know the answer. I just like to say, you know what? I'm willing to fall in a hole to make it to the next step. I'm willing to fall in and try and climb out. It's scary. I'll be okay. And know that sometimes that advice isn't my path. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. And I would also like add on to that. Wisdom is learning. Okay, I've fallen in this hole 7 times now. What did I learn here? Like you know,
Yeah.
or
Well, if it's the
and
same hole, yes.
yes, and yeah, of course. But I've had you know probably like yourself as well, like lots of experience through having to go through that. But I think the overall wisdom is when you realize, hey, let me read a book and see where someone stuffed up. Let me listen to someone's story. Let me, and as you get wiser, because I'm not going to say older,
Mhm.
because there's people that I know that are younger than me, and they haven't had to experience a whole bunch of suffering, and they've learned a lot of lessons from everyone else, and but their mind has just been really geared to it. And I don't know if they saw one thing when they were younger and they went, "Oh my god, I do not want that life experience for me," and that shocked them. So that could have been their own experience. You know what I mean? And I guess that's what I talk about. The virtual reality, the side of the thing is like, visualizing what could go wrong, like so you don't have to keep falling. And I'm not saying that there's nothing, like you getting back up is brilliant, and everyone getting back up is brilliant, and I've done it a ton of times. But looking back, I go, hey, I would have been pretty happy. Like I'm happy where I am, but I would have been pretty happy like getting things a bit quicker, learning things a bit quicker, not having to. And for the younger kids or for the next generation, for the next person, I would not want the same. I would want the lesson, and
Yeah.
you've got to give something up for the lesson. You definitely have to give something up. You have to go out and really, if you're not going to go through the experience, like you're going to have to really study it and pay attention, be aware of what went wrong and how did it happen, and see it in your mind and experience it virtually. You know, and that's when I
Mhm.
think, okay, great. I don't have to actually go and get bankrupt. I see how this person went and got bankrupt. You know,
Very
like
true. Very well.
yeah,
And yeah, you could also, I think, also, if I fell in the hole and the first time and noticed that I fell in the hole, because I think sometimes we don't notice that we fall in the hole, right? But if I do that and I'm in the hole, one of the things I might be able to do is go to the people that I care about that I know support me, and I could ask them a question. Hey, what challenges have you gotten through, and what were some of the strengths that you gained from them? Right? Like,
Mm.
start asking those, and not, I don't even have to say that I'm in a challenge at this point. I can just ask the question. And then as they share with me, maybe then I will share that I'm in a challenge at the very end. But because something special happens when I ask that question, is then I'm able to connect. And a couple of things. So, first, I learned that I'm not the only one who's ever struggled, right?
Mm.
So, there's empathy there. So, I'm
Mm.
not alone. I can have empathy. And guess
Connection.
what? I'm also getting validated
Yes.
because someone else is telling me about
Yeah.
this. And that all I learned from Brian Fretwell. So I hadn't realized that before. I think that that's amazing to even think about things that way.
Well, one thing I wanted to jump back to, because you mentioned it earlier, and it is around that whole, because I think anybody can be a mentor. Like someone can say something or share something to you, and then it hits you, or like this gentleman that you're talking about, like you just hear it or hear it in a different way. And also, I think there's times where you go back, and this is where not to have the ego of, "Oh, I've learned that, I've read that book, I know that, I've watched that documentary, I've seen
Mm.
that thing," because you are a different person, and you going back to that information with different eyes, a different mind, different, spiritual, accompanying everything that has happened in the last little while, all the transformations that you've gone through. You go back to that information, it's actually now new information.
Oh, I love that analogy. I really do, and it reminds me, you might think this is funny, but I've read the Aragon series, The
Yeah, no, you
Inheritance
told me
Cycle,
this.
like
Yeah, yeah,
5 times.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I started it my 6th time,
How
and
many books in
every
the
single
series?
time 5? 4?
Okay.
I don't know. It's a lot of words, but, and I don't remember the amount of pages because I read on my Kindle, so I just don't pay attention. I mean, but the point that I really love to make, and it gets I get validated in this every time I read it because I'm like, "Oh, I didn't
Didn't see
notice
that.
that before."
Yeah, yeah.
You know? Even on a show, I'll notice something. Like, I love, Moulin
That's the
Rouge.
raising of self-awareness, isn't it? Like, because you can also notice things about yourself. Like, you come back to something another time, and then you go, "Oh, I didn't notice that I did that." And then, like, I guess with the whole mentoring thing and having to experience those things to learn things, sometimes you come back with self-awareness and go, "Oh, I didn't notice I self-sabotage like that." I didn't
Yeah.
notice I I put those little traps in, or I dug that hole, forgot I dug that hole, and I came back and I walked right into the damn hole I dug. You know,
In the
which
hole I dug. I
yeah,
like
yeah,
that. I dug the hole
exactly.
myself, and then I
Uh,
fall in it.
yes, exactly, exactly. Like digging your own ditch. It's so, and uh, to bring that into, um, like what we can take away, I'd say digging the hole could be, oh, look, I really want to finish this book, and then going and spending time with people, your old mates or your old friends, and they're going like, "Ah, yeah, I can never write a book. Yeah, a book. Who's going to want to be?" Yeah, and then you're like, that is digging the hole, or going, you know, and then yes, we all have that self sabotaging or that imposter syndrome, but allowing yourself to dive deep into that and circulate, that's digging the hole, and then you go to preach for
Mhm.
that book again, and then all those things start stirring up, those conversations from your old buddies and whatever start stirring up, and you literally fall into that hole of, I can't do this, I can't achieve that. And I think the person I was talking to recently, I was mentioning, like how we're talking about anyone can be a mentor. They said something to me because they listened to my audiobook and they read my audiobook, and we were just chatting, having a conversation. And they're like, "Oh, like you could do this, or you could do that." And she's like really inspired. She's like, "Oh, your audiobook's like a hot shot of coffee, a hit of coffee, or whatever it was." And she's like, um, I'm like, "Yeah, no, I haven't done that because I'm going here," whatever it was. And then she was like, "Oh, look, I hope you don't mind me being frank with you, but you speak about these things in the book, but you're kind of being a bit of a hypocrite right now." And my God,
Oh, I
that
love that.
that
Oh,
was brilliant. That kicked me into a gear, you know. And I think part of the reason why, like, you write the book or you put yourself out there or you put your goals out there and you get it out there is, well, hey, now there's some pressure. Now I've got to be held accountable to myself, to what I've said. Yes, this was an important goal, but maybe I've kind of weaned off it because certain things happened in my life, or I got a bit lackluster or whatever. But once you've made it a statement, then you have to revisit that. What was I thinking at that time? Why was that important? What sort of energy frequency was I operating that got me so bold and brash and out there? And so like friend said that, and then also also said like, oh, and you're being a bit selfish if you don't find a way to figure this out and create this. I was like, so selfish and hypocrite. I'm like, that's like my double espresso or whatever you call it. That's brilliant. It really does kick you into gear. And with that same friend, I was talking about accountability and different sort of things, and she was saying how she tried it with one person, and this happens a lot, in life. Tried it with one person, didn't work out, and the problem was this person, as great as they were coming to them with all these things and opinions about their business, what they must do. Um, I can now see how she's maybe slightly done that to me. But anyway, coming back like to with all these opinions, and she goes, "Well, hang on a minute. Like, I know those things I need to do. I'm already on top of that." And it's like what you said at the very start. Like, instead of attacking with communication or dictating your commandments, get into communication, get into a conversation. Like, listen, and like you said, like, ask those powerful questions. You know, um,
yeah. And
like,
be
ask.
willing to be uncomfortable, I think. I think one of
Yes.
the biggest questions I have to ask myself is, am I willing to be uncomfortable? And for me, the answer is yes. It's not always yes. I will definitely say that. And most of the time, though, in order to learn and grow, it's like uh, the Theodore Roosevelt from I'm trying to remember the I don't know the whole quote, but it's like, it's not the critic who counts, the credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood. Like, am I
Wow,
willing to have that dust and sweat and blood
wow,
on me? Am I willing
that's
to
powerful.
push myself a little bit over the limit so that I can work at achieving something, like,
Mm.
my big wake up call was when I fainted and I woke up and I thought, "Did I die? No, I'm still alive. I'm bleeding." Like, it was a mess. They had to take me to the hospital. I had stitches and everything. And at that point it was like, "Whew, I have some stuff I absolutely have to get done." I don't know what happened to my spirit in that moment, right? From when I was consciously aware to when I fainted. I believe I got a little bit of an upgrade, and it was like, "Okay,
Software update.
yeah, it was a I literally crashed." Uh,
System down, system up.
yes, yeah, and because it was after that it was like, "Okay, there are things you have to finish before moving on, and you need to get to it and do it. Now find those people who will support you. You may not have all the answers, don't know how you're going to do it. At least that was what it was for me. And I just started, and sometimes we have to step through that and be willing to miserably fail.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. Face up to it, put yourself out there and face up to it. And have the fact that out of this, um, like I said, the blood, the sweat, the dirt, the grit, out of it, the glory is going to come, you know, and the glory can just be you at the end of like a software update. um,
Yeah. Yeah. And find somebody to do it with, right? Like, you know, we're doing this podcast together. We're cheering each other on. You know, there are other people in your life that cheer you on. There are other people in my life that cheer me on. Sometimes some of them don't. And those are the ones that's like, okay, thanks, but you know, there's something when you feel your purpose and
Mm.
something comes to you and it's like the core of who you are and you know it to be true. That's when it's like all of a sudden it doesn't matter what anyone else says,
She just
what
gets real clear at that moment.
it yeah, it does. It's like, okay, nope, you said you've got to do this and you've got to do this and you've got to do this and it doesn't matter.
Right.
And and then what happens is when you stay true to that purpose, to stay true to your soul, is you start like you become a magnet to those other types of people that
Mm.
are also staying true to their soul. And it's just really beautiful. It's just, yeah. I that's what I can say about that.
That's awesome. I love that. It's true. It's true. And I think when you are at that level, you know, then you can start realizing, okay, I've got this purpose, I've got this drive. Am I going to let my belief hold me back? Am I going to let? It's kind of like, oh, this guy's on the blue side or he's on the red side, but he's got like life changing information that could like help me in my business. You know what? I'm not going to listen to him because he's on the opposite color of me. He's on the opposite, like the voting aisle of me, or he's got the opposite. And like for me, I've learned a ton from people that I might not necessarily agree on or have the same beliefs or the same, a lot of the same. Well, obviously, I think core principles, like I think if they're a good person and things like that, but maybe I think their head's messed up in a few ways. Maybe I think my head's up is messed up in a few ways, with what we believe and what we view and what we see and how we look at the world. But I think if we've got something that can enrich each other's lives, then that's where we come together. We come together as a planet, as humanity, where hey, you might go for the Red Sox, and I might go for the I don't know. I'm trying to remember
I have no
the,
idea what I would go
the
for,
teams,
but
but
we'll
you
just
know what
be
I'm saying, like.
opposite, okay?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, can you come together on a mutual? Okay, how can I become better? Like, can you give me information whether I would vote for you or not? I'd vote for the other guy. Blah blah. Can you give me information that would help me? Is there a book? Is there something in the book that you wrote that could help me, regardless of um, you know me thinking you're this or reading an article about you online of how much of the mean person you are, whatever it is. Like so. What I'd love to just finish on this homework. Um,
Yes. Yes.
so
And
I
then we'll
had a bit of
close up.
Yeah, I had a bit of an idea, and I was thinking about it this morning, and it's discussing the the question of like how far into your potential could you reach if you cleared away all the garbage people, the garbage beliefs, the garbage self criticism, and I think you got to be hard on yourself at a certain point to show up and step into your greatness. But like you don't need to be beating yourself up constantly. Um, and speaking negatively about yourself. So I think
Yeah.
you're hard on yourself in terms of, hey, I know I can, I know I've got more in me. I know I can step up a gear. I know I can be better next time. So anyway, how far can we reach into our potential if we clear away a lot of the sewer? And one thing I'd love for everyone to look at, because talking about it is nice, but getting the visual confirmation of it's really really nice. And there's an article. I don't know where the exact article. I might try to find it so we can put it in the comments. But it's basically shows photos of these landmarks all around the world. And the one that I remember most was the Taj Mahal. Now, the Taj Mahal up close, like, it's just a stunning piece of architecture. But then it shows the Taj Mahal shot from like quite a distance back. And then there's all this litter and rubbish and crap in the way
Mm.
of it. And it shows like about, I think, like 20 odd different landmarks. They're like, my God, this is phenomenal. And you come back like, a little bit and you see, the crap, broken down building, like whatever it is. And I think it's like the visual representation of that's our the Taj Mahal's our potential, but like we can't walk towards it or see it or touch it or get to it because we've got all this rubbish around it, you know? And
Yeah. Yeah,
so,
and you have to walk through that. You
yeah,
can't jump over it. A lot of times there's a lot of healing that happens. So it's like you have to take that journey through it to get to the Taj Mahal maybe.
Yeah, yep. And if you want to get to like, we've got to put the rubbish in the bin. We've got to find a way. And for some people it's an easy way, some people it's other way, but got to find a way of confronting that negative voice in our head. We've got to find a way of confronting that negative person in our life. You know,
Yeah, and maybe gently confronting it. One of the
no, I
people
mean
I work
100
with.
miles. No, I'm joking.
Yeah, no, no, no. Well, because one of the people I work with, and I know you've got to go, is that uh hold on. Oh, when the negative comes up, it's gently saying, "Oh, no, 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 no. I'm not doing that right now. Thank you, and I'm going to do this." Like thought wise.
That's a great
So
way
for
of.
her, yeah, it needs to be gentle and loving,
Mm,
because then it doesn't make that part wrong. That's just not what we're doing. So thank you for your opinion. It's kind of like when somebody gives advice that it's like, well, that's not the road I feel called to go down.
mm,
Oh, well, that sounds really interesting. Thank you so much. I'm gonna do it this way. You know,
yeah,
that's kind of one
yeah,
of those things. So
yeah.
I really want to make sure we're bringing love to the table when we're talking to ourselves, because when I talk to myself negatively and, oh, that's crap and garbage, it needs to go, then that stuff gets worse for me
Mm.
anyway.
And that's digging the hole. That's like
Yeah.
digging your own ditch, literally.
Yeah.
I do it. Like I think I don't think that there's anybody that doesn't do it in one category. But
Yeah.
that would be that. So the homework would be asking or self analysis, investigating like what rubbish do you need to get rid of so you can
Yeah.
reach into your full potential.
Yeah. Lovingly tell it, no, thank you.
Yeah, and maybe
I
make a
love that.
list. Like we keep piling on the homework, but one other thing. So this is a choice. You can do either. The other thing could be it's your choice. Could be write out a list of mentors that you want in your life, and have a mentor in every area for your spirituality, for your physical health, for your finances, for your personal relationships, for your business, like your professional side, whatever it is. Like find write out like maybe the areas that you want help. So there's a few areas there, and find a couple mentors in each area. And maybe you don't have money right now, maybe you don't have the resources right now, maybe you don't have the opportunity right now, but just start bringing it in on paper, bringing it in your mind, bringing it in, into how could it be, what could they help me with, who do I need, like I need to get across this bridge, how do I get across that bridge, okay, I need this person to help me to get across that bridge.
Awesome. Beautiful. Well, we are at our hour. We're a little bit over. So I just want to thank everyone. Kyle, thank you for the homework as always.
Thank
And
you.
uh,
Thank you for
I
letting me
am,
go.
oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Okay, so I'm going to start closing this out, or do you want to start closing this out?
You go first, ladies
Okay,
first.
okay. So this was the Destiny of Your Soul, and I'm Angela with Poems from a Lost Soul, and this is, wait, over here.
And I'm Carl Sprides, and from Decide Your Destiny, and this is the Destiny of Your Soul.
Thank you for coming. We'll see you next week.